For years, I believed that love could survive anything. My wife, Emily, and I had built what looked like the perfect life from the outside. We had a beautiful home, successful careers, and a circle of friends who envied our relationship. The only thing missing was a child. Month after month, we tried without success until one doctor's appointment changed everything. Emily walked out of the clinic in complete silence. The doctor had suggested more tests before reaching any conclusion, but somehow, by the time we reached home, Emily had already decided that I was the reason. From that day forward, every argument ended with the same cruel sentence: "You're not a real man because you can't give me a family." I kept hoping she would calm down, never realizing that those words were only the beginning of my nightmare. The humiliation reached its peak during her 32nd birthday party. Nearly 50 guests filled our backyard, laughing, drinking, and celebrating while I grilled steaks with a fake smile. Then Emily stood up with a champagne glass in her hand and tapped it with a spoon. Everyone turned toward her, expecting a heartfelt speech. Instead, she looked directly at me with a smile that sent chills down my spine. "I want to thank everyone for supporting me through the hardest years of my life," she announced, "especially while being married to a man who can't even give me a baby." The crowd fell silent. Some laughed awkwardly, think it was a joke. My face burned with shame as she continued, "Maybe in my next life I'll marry someone who's actually capable of being a father." I stood frozen while every pair of eyes stared at me. At that moment, something inside me quietly broke. The next morning, Emily packed 3 expensive suitcases without saying a word. I asked where she was going, but she simply smiled with cold satisfaction. "I'm leaving with someone who can actually give me the life I deserve." Minutes later, a black luxury SUV pulled into the driveway. Out stepped Ryan, a wealthy real estate investor I had met only twice. He wrapped his arm around my wife in front of me without an ounce of shame. Emily kissed him, climbed into the passenger seat, and before closing the door, she looked back one final time. "Enjoy your lonely little life," she said. "You'll never know what it's like to hear a child call you dad." The SUV disappeared down the street, leaving behind nothing but silence, broken promises, and the shattered pieces of my marriage. The divorce happened faster than I expected. Emily demanded almost everything: the house, half my savings, even family heirlooms that had belonged to my late mother. I was too emotionally exhausted to fight. Friends disappeared overnight, believing the version of the story Emily had spread. According to her, I had wasted the best years of her life because I was infertile. Even my own relatives looked at me with pity instead of respect. Every family gathering became unbearable. People whispered when I entered the room. Children played around me while I silently wondered if I would ever have one of my own. The loneliness was suffocating. But deep inside, one question refused to disappear. Why had the doctor never actually confirmed that I was infertile? That question became an obsession. I scheduled appointments with one of the country's leading fertility specialists. After weeks of advanced medical testing, the doctor walked into the room holding my file with a confused expression. He smiled before saying words that completely changed my life. "Mr. Carter, your fertility is perfectly normal. In fact, your test results are excellent. There's absolutely no medical evidence suggesting that you're infertile." I stared at him, unable to speak. My entire world stopped spinning. Years of humiliation, years of believing I was broken, all because of a lie. As I walked out of the hospital, anger mixed with relief. Emily had never waited for the truth. She had simply needed someone to blame before chasing the life she already wanted. Months later, life surprised me in the most unexpected way. During a charity fundraiser organized by my company, I met Olivia, a pediatric nurse with the kindest smile I had ever seen. Unlike everyone else, she never asked about my past on our first date. She cared about who I was, not what I had lost. Slowly, she helped me believe in myself again. We laughed together, traveled together, and healed together. Nearly 2 years after our wedding, Olivia nervously handed me a small gift box one quiet Sunday morning. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes and a positive pregnancy test. I couldn't hold back my tears. For the first time in years, hope felt real. 9 months later, Our healthy twins arrived, and 2 years after that, we welcomed another beautiful baby into our family. Every bedtime story, every tiny laugh, every little hand wrapped around my finger reminded me that the cruel label Emily had placed on me had never been true. The 5th year of my new life arrived quietly, wrapped in ordinary moments that meant everything to me. Every morning began with tiny footsteps racing down the hallway, followed by 3 excited voices shouting, "Dad!" Our twins, Noah and Lily, were now 4 years old, while little Grace had just celebrated her 2nd birthday. Olivia filled our home with warmth, patience, and laughter that erased every scar my past had left behind. Looking at my family around the breakfast table, I often caught myself smiling for no reason. The man who had once believed he would never become a father was now living the dream he had almost given up on forever. I thought the chapter called Emily had ended long ago. I couldn't have been more wrong. One Saturday afternoon, we visited a large community park hosting a children's charity festival. The twins were chasing bubbles across the grass, while Grace sat happily on my shoulders, giggling every time I pretended to lose my balance. Olivia stood nearby taking pictures, laughing at our silly games. It felt like one of those perfect family moments you wish could last forever. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a woman standing completely still near the entrance. Her shopping bag slipped from her hands and scattered across the pavement. She stared directly at me with wide, terrified eyes. Even from a distance, I recognized her immediately. Emily looked older than her age, exhausted, and nothing like the confident woman who had walked away 5 years earlier. But what truly froze her in place wasn't seeing me. It was seeing the 3 little children surrounding me. For several seconds, she couldn't move. Her lips trembled as if she were trying to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she slowly walked toward us, never taking her eyes off the children. Those are your kids," she whispered. Before I could answer, Noah grabbed my hand and proudly said, "He's the best dad in the whole world." Lily hugged my leg while Grace reached her tiny arms toward me, demanding another ride on my shoulders. Emily looked as though someone had pulled the ground from beneath her feet. The same woman who had once laughed at me for supposedly being unable to have children was now staring at undeniable proof that every cruel accusation she had made had been completely false. Her face turned pale as the truth crashed over her all at once. She asked if we could talk privately. Olivia looked at me for a moment, and I simply nodded. She trusted me completely because there were no secrets between us. Emily and I walked a short distance away, where the sounds of children playing faded into the background. She struggled to keep her composure before finally admitting what had happened after she left me. Ryan, the wealthy man she had chosen over our marriage, had never wanted a real family. Within 2 years, she discovered he had been involved with multiple women at the same time. He eventually abandoned her for someone younger, leaving her with nothing except debt and broken promises. Then her voice cracked as she revealed the cruelest twist of fate. After months of medical testing, doctors had discovered that Ryan, not me, had been infertile all along. Every dream she had chased had collapsed because she had trusted arrogance instead of truth. Tears rolled down her face as she looked back toward my family. "I destroyed everything," she whispered. "I blamed the wrong person. I humiliated you, and I threw away the only man who ever truly loved me." She begged for forgiveness, insisting she thought about me every single day. She admitted that watching me play with my children felt like watching a life she could have had disappear forever. I listened quietly without interrupting. Years earlier, I had imagined this exact moment countless times, believing revenge would somehow heal me. But standing there, I realized I felt no anger anymore, only peace. The wound she had created had already been healed by the people waiting for me only a few yards away. I took one final look at Emily before speaking calmly. "You didn't lose me because I was infertile," I said. "You lost me because you chose cruelty over loyalty, humiliation over love, and assumptions over truth. These children exist because someone believed in me when you didn't." She lowered her head, unable to meet my eyes. Behind me, Olivia called out with a warm smile, "Honey, the kids are ready for ice cream." 3 tiny voices immediately shouted, "Dad, hurry." I smiled back at them before turning to Emily one last time. "I truly hope you find peace," I said. "But my home, my heart, and my future are already complete." Without waiting for another response, I walked back toward my family. Noah grabbed one hand, Lily grabbed the other, and I lifted Grace into my arms while Olivia slipped her fingers into mine. Together, we walked toward the ice cream stand, laughing about which flavors everyone wanted. I never looked back because some chapters are meant to stay closed forever. As we disappeared into the crowd, I knew Emily was still standing exactly where I had left her, watching the family she once claimed I could never have. At last, life had delivered the truth in the most powerful way possible. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a life so full of love, happiness, and purpose that the people who doubted you are forced to witness everything they threw away and realize they can never get it back.